and fixture in the drag racing lexicon. The funny car class made its Winter Nationals debut in 1969, and it was Claire Sanders, teammate to the sport's all-time mischievous bad boy, Jungle Jim Lieberman, who would win his only career national event title in his 1969 Chevy 2.
My first Winter Nationals that I really paid serious attention to was the 1969 one, because Jungle Jim's car went out there, running in the funny car class. Claire Sanders is driving. The show's on Wide World of Sports, and I remember everybody, even to this day, if you look at the National Dragster qualifying list of that 69 race, there is no mention of Claire Sanders. He is not listed in the qualified, is listed as Jim Lieberman. Went down there, won the race at the end of the track. ABC's covering it. Keith Jackson comes over and goes, "Well, Jim, we'd like to congratulate you for the win." And Claire had to tell him, "That's good, except for one thing. I'm not Jim."
Meanwhile, the Top Fuel class was charging full bore through the 1960s. In 1965, a 23-year-old Top Fuel driver born and raised in Southern California arrived in Pomona to drive the dragster owned by Hawaiian entrepreneur and drag racing enthusiast Roland Leong. Don the Snake Prudhomme knew the Winter Nationals was something special.
Well, everybody was there because it was on nitromethane. Met Garlich, the Greek, Malone, Bob Sullivan, Warren and Colburn, the Mongoose. We were all there running. And dragsters, Top Fuel dragsters, front-engine dragsters, that was the car.
Alexander starts first. Prudhomme blasts into the lead at the halfway point and wins the Top Fuel crown.
Prudhomme would not only win the Winter Nationals in 1965, but would go on to win the other crown jewel of NHRA national events, the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis on Labor Day weekend.
Prudhomme gets the jump this time and really lets it out, hitting 207.33 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds. What a finish!
Prudhomme recalls how the Winter Nationals victory was the springboard that launched his 1965 campaign.
Roland and I left there and went touring around the country, and we ended up at the U.S. Nationals, which I had heard of before, but of course I'd never run there because that was another situation where they ran on gasoline. But in '65 we're on nitromethane, and we went in there and won that race. And it was a crazy thing back in those days that, you know, there were so many entries, you know, like maybe 32 cars and so on. So the guy that won on Sunday went through all the rounds and won on Sunday, got to set out and race the final winner of the guy on Monday. So this whole group of cars ran over again, and so then they paired the winner from Sunday up to the winner on Saturday, which was Tom Ivel and myself. Both of us Valley guys, both of us in the Road Kings, both of us not liking each other. And we came to the starting line and I beat him. And you know, you had to set out the whole day waiting for that one single shot to win the race in '65 at the U.S. Nationals. So it was different.
In Top Fuel, 32-car fields had become commonplace at many of the bigger NHRA events. And in 1969, the Winter Nationals was no exception. Like Sanders in Funny Car, it was another first-time winner capturing Top Fuel honors. The colorful, fan-friendly John the Zookeeper Mulligan, driving Tim Beebe's Fighting Irish entry and beating none other than Don the Snake Prudhomme in the final. Sadly, Mulligan would lose his life in a fiery crash later that year at the U.S. Nationals. The 1960s could be described as a horsepower glut in drag racing, and the fame and notoriety of the NHRA's Winter Nationals grew in equal measure with what was happening in the national high-performance arena. Drag racing stars had been born, and for many, their stardom was earned the moment they became a Winter Nationals champion.
There were a lot of those drivers, surprisingly, that made their legends by winning the Winter Nationals. Not only Don Prudhomme, 65, the Hawaiian car comes and goes back-to-back with different drivers and wins the race. Connie Collette in 67 swept, to this date, the only triple crown of drag racing, winning the AHRA, the NASCAR, and the NHRA Winter Nationals. And probably one of the biggest legends there was Bob Moravez in the freight train in 63, winning the race there over Connie Collette. I mean, you have a couple of guys there that became, I don't want to say instant classics because they did so much more in the history of the sport, but if you look back and had to pick one pivotal moment and say, boy, these guys really became part of the landscape of drag racing, there's three guys right there that you could pick and say, Pomona's the place where they made their niche. And from then they became certainly almost household names in the sport.
The celebration of the high-performance automobile ended abruptly as the 1970s were getting up to speed. Oil shortages, skyrocketing gasoline prices, and the government's increased emphasis on automobile safety spelled doom for Detroit's brash and bodacious addiction to the muscle car. But on the drag strip, elapsed times were dropping, top speeds were increasing, and the Winternationals was still the Big Go West. The 1970 Winternationals served as the crowning glory for a popular West Coast top fuel racer, driving the infamous Howard Cams Rattler, Larry Dixon. His 1970 victory was his only NHRA national event win, and one of the most enduring photographs ever taken at an NHRA Winter Circle shows Dixon receiving the accolades of the fans while holding his 3-year-old son and future NHRA champion Larry Jr. in his arms. Today, Larry Jr. regrets he can't recall that special moment.
I wish I did. I know we have it, we've got it on video, with the Wild World of Sports, and I was only 3 years old at the time. And for me, it's just another weekend at the racetrack. That's just what we did.
Between the 1971 and 1975 Winternationals, Big Daddy Don Garlits would be the man to beat in Top Fuel. In those 5 years, Garlits won the Winternationals 3 times, giving him 4 victories overall. In the 1975 event, Garlits got a huge break in round 1 when he smoked the tires against Don Ewald, apparently losing the race. But Ewald crossed the center line and was disqualified, breathing new life into Garlits' hopes for another Winternationals championship. Big Daddy powered his way to the final.
And settles closer. He spins his wheels. And Garlits, his engine smoking, streaks down the line for an unprecedented 4th Winternationals title.
But some of the most thunderous performances in the 1970s were to be found in the funny car class. In 1972, the Winternationals funny car title was won by one of the NHRA's greatest drivers, Ed the Ace McCulloch.
Probably my first trip to Pomona, we went there, and just to get qualified, there was a rule that the car could not be a primer car when you entered the race. Art Whipple and myself had built this car. We were behind. We weren't going to have time to get it painted, and so it couldn't be a gray primered car. So we put blue tint in it, so it was a blue primered car, and they bought off on it. We put some decals on it and some shoe polish on it, and they let us run.
Several years later, in 1972, the Ace won his first and only Winternationals crown, driving and tuning his 1972 Dodge Demon to the funny car class honors.
He's the winner. 6.68.
It was a great experience. Most other sports, you have a home field advantage. For whatever reason, in our sport, and I think you can talk to most any driver out there, it's very, very difficult to win at your home track. And to be able to go to Pomona and pull that off and then continue on and have the year that we had in 1972, it was a kickoff to a great year.
Just as Don the Snake Prudhomme had done in Top Fuel in 1965, Ed the Ace McCulloch won both the Winternationals and U.S. Nationals in funny car in 1972. But winning the Big Go West was as daunting a task as any in the sport.
The Winternationals, not only was it the first race of the year, but it was a huge race. Anybody that was somebody came to the Winternationals. Prudhomme, McEwen, the East Coast guys, Jungle, all of the guys came to Pomona, and that just made it that much harder to win.
In 1973, a Chicago-based owner and driver who was blessed with not only drag racing savvy, but razor-sharp business instincts, was fielding a multi-car funny car team. He would pick up his only Winternationals victory that year, driving his 1973 Barracuda emblazoned with the nickname Stardust. Don Schumacher recalls his 1973 Winternationals victory.
Beating Kenny Bernstein in the final, him driving for Ray Alley in the Engine Master's car, was really a special time for me and a special race. It's a long race. It was 4 days long back then. As I remember, we had some challenges with weather, which is a pretty normal situation for some reason that time of year in Southern California. There were some challenges with the racetrack. We were all running 2-speed transmissions in our funny cars. I only used high gear because there were some challenges with the racetrack. I believe I was probably the only car out there that was using high gear, so it was real easy for the guys to get a jump on me off the starting line, which Kenny did. But it was very difficult to hold on to that lead, which nobody else did. I was able to get around everybody and win the race, and it was a special one. It set a tone for 1973 for me that continued on from there.
The very first one I went to was the Engine Master's car with Ray Alley. I was driving his car. That was the very first time I'd ever gone to a national event at all. And it actually got rained out. We had to go back to Texas and then come back because it was 2 or 3 weeks later. They didn't run it the next week. There was something going on at the fairgrounds. And I was just driving Ray's car, and it was myself and one other guy and Ed Pink. That was it. That was the crew. And then Ray helped us when he was out there on the West Coast. Lo and behold, we got to the finals. We got runner-up to a guy named Don Schumacher. And on that run, we actually had him covered, and the blower belt came off. And that was my very first Winter Nationals I ever ran. It was the Engine Masters car.
In 1975, one of the most remarkable displays of funny car dominance was about to shake up the NHRA. Don the Snake Prudhomme was embarking on a 4-year blitzkrieg, which would make him the first driver in NHRA history to win 4 consecutive world championships.
And down the strip it's Prudhomme. Great is an L for the victory.
Between 1975 and 1978, the Snake was unbeatable at the Winter Nationals, and those wins served as a launching pad for his record-setting march into drag racing history.
Winning the Winter Nationals at any time, now, then, really sets off the year right for you. You know, you leave there the points leader, you leave there with the most prestige of the year. You really start your year off spectacular. The worst thing you do is go to the Winter Nationals and lose first round. You know, but you know, there's testing that a lot of folks don't know about, you know, in the earlier weeks before that race, and everyone is preparing for the Winter Nationals, and because they want to leave there the winner.
Prudhomme was relentless. I mean, he was a hard, tough competitor, and always was and always will be. That's his nature, and I really give the guy credit for his determination and his desire to win.
In 1970, a new professional class, Pro Stock, made its Winter Nationals debut. Coming on the heels of the wild and woolly factory wars of the 1960s, Pro Stock was the more sensible extension of that period, meant to standardize and stabilize the way Detroit would now drag race. Some familiar names and a long list of new ones were about to take center stage in this new class, but the 1970 Pro Stock final at the Winter Nationals featured a couple of battle-tested veterans head-to-head. Mr. 4-Speed, Ronnie Sox in his notorious red, white, and blue Sox and Martin Plymouth Cuda, and William Tyler Jenkins, better known as Grumpy, aboard his ever-familiar Grumpy's Toy 1969 Camaro. The fans who were stuffed into the grandstands at Pomona Raceway that afternoon shifted a bit closer to the edge of their seats, and those standing along the fences squeezed in as tightly as they could when Sox and Jenkins pulled to the line. 9.98 seconds later, the win light came on for Jenkins, thus claiming the first ever Winter Nationals Pro Stock Championship, the first of his 3 overall. For Sox, he would have to wait until 1971 to enjoy his first taste of Winter Nationals glory.
The king of Pro Stock.
The funniest thing about that to me, and it was such a neat thing to watch, because again, I'd grown up, I'd watched Ronnie Sox, I'd watched Bill Jenkins, I'd watched them come out of the factory experimental, the super stock, the factory cars, which were such a great part of the Winter Nationals at the beginning. And to watch them be there in the debut of the Pro Stock class was just amazing. And you look back upon this, and I never forget watching Ronnie Sox and Bill Jenkins and 4-speed transmissions and great reaction times, and they ran 10 flat. The place went wild. You know, with a performance thing. I mean, gasoline and carburetors. And these are, oh my gosh, they broke 10 seconds. And it's so funny when you look back about it. You think these guys, at the time, you're sitting there saying, how much faster can you go in gasoline and carburetors? And to watch what they did. But the excitement, if you read every publication in 1970 about the Winter Nationals, and I mean, this even includes National Dragster. I mean, Larry Dixon's dad won that race, was the last guy ever to win in the front engine dragster at the time. Had a great story with him winning that. Every publication talked about Pro Stock first at the 1970 Winter Nationals.
But as the 1970s were drawing to a close, another name had now become the widely accepted trademark of the Pro Stock class. Backed by the enormous resources of Ford, and coming to battle with a limitless knowledge of engine building, race car setup, and behind-the-wheel skills, Whiteland, Indiana's Bob Glidden would win the Winter Nationals 4 times between 1975 and 1979. And ultimately go on to win an unprecedented 10 Pro Stock World Championships. But his final Winter Nationals title in 1979 was achieved from behind the wheel of not a Ford, but a Plymouth.
Bob Glidden's era with Plymouth was a classic case of Bob Glidden being a racer first and then brand loyal second. Back then, there were so many different rules changes that you could have. People remember the four-door car that the Gap and Roush people ran. I mean, a four-door car running in a Pro Stock list. There were station wagons that ran in Pro Stock, but they had the different rules for the long wheelbase cars, the big blocks, the small blocks. Bob came out one year with the Mustang that was 5 years old because it fit better into the rules. So for him to come out and run a Plymouth after running the Fords for all that time was almost a heresy for the folks that loved the blue oval things. Anybody at the time that thought Bob Glidden was not going to be competitive with that car did not know Bob Glidden.
Garlitz, Prudhomme, Glidden. Three drag racers who symbolized Winternationals' performance domination in the decade of the 70s. As the 1980s were about to bring in a new era of NHRA superiority, would it be these names or new names which would rule the record books at the Winternationals?